Hello, pproteus here. This is August 20th. I'm back for another Pauper challenge with Stompy. I'm going to keep this hand, as you can see my interesting choice of deck. I'm not going to talk too much about my deck choices because I think that it doesn't really matter so much. I experimented quite a bit over the past couple of weeks with some very odd changes, including a bunch of main deck artifact destruction spells, and the conclusion I came to is that it doesn't really matter as long as the core of the deck stays the same. And so I've got a few weird choices, and they'll be good in some matchups and not so good in others. And that hopefully won't matter basically at all. And sure, you can make the argument, what's the point of making changes that make things swingier if it won't matter at all? And yeah, you've got a point, but I will certainly learn through doing it this way. And, you know, I'm expecting a lot of Delver, so that's what the gut shot's doing here. This always faced opponent played against them in a Pauper challenge before. They're probably on Affinity. I'm a little short on artifact removal in my sideboard, which is not so much a consequence of observing Affinity, it's actually a consequence of observing a complete lack of hexproof in the previous challenge. So I decided that this was just not necessary. But don't focus too much on the build. So my opponent is clearly a little bored. I will wait till they come back. Alright, opponent is back. Mulled to 6. So this is, I think, a pretty good hand. Gut Shot is not a great card against Affinity. So if my opponent tries to go Flare Husk here, actually I don't have an incentive to just eat it, because my opponent might play a Springleaf Drum, and then I get to surprise them. And yeah, that's not great, but I'm not going to get anything great out of Gut Shot in this matchup. I'm just going to cast my spells. This hand just plays in a very straightforward manner. Not really any choices to make. I didn't really want a third land, despite my Elephant Guide, because I assume I will draw a third land eventually, and I want to make sure I keep casting spells. If I draw a fourth land, I'm quite unhappy with it. Alright, so this is representing Galblast, which I think means I don't cast Elephant Guide. Kyrian is good, because I want to make sure my Nine Sentinel keeps untapping. So this is the first chance my opponent has had to cast Galvanic Blast this game, and I'm not going to walk Elephant Guide into it. I'm not going to let my opponent know that I have a third land. I'm just going to play Kyrian untapping. And my opponent doesn't cast Galvanic Blast at the end of my turn. unless they show during their turn that they have a strong need of colored mana, then I will assume that they do not have Galvanic Blast. Okay, they still might have a Galvanic Blast because they don't have another land. Okay, that's fine. Riverbow is fine. I do want to play my land here. Now I'm going to put my Elephant Guide on my Pit Skulk. The reason for that is my opponent might have Galvanic Blast, as I just discussed, and I do not want to get the creature that has the Elephant Guide on it hit by Galvanic Blast. Riverboa, probably not at its best well, it's not at its best in this matchup for sure. And what it is good at in this matchup is buying me time. Time is not what I need, I just need to win quickly. Maybe Gutshot is... that's funny, I get to kill my opponent with Gutshot. I will attack with everything. My opponent just has nothing. I'm going to attack with everything to see how my opponent blocks, and then Gutshot's going to deal the last point of damage. Don't let this fool you into thinking that Gutshot is good in this matchup. Maybe this will tilt my opponent a little bit. And now time to side out the Gutshots. So let's take a look at what I've got here. I'm not going to harp on too much about the individual choices. I will consider it mission accomplished if people start online discussing about the merits of the various choices. I think any merits between these choices and the previous choices I've made are basically negligible. So, Gutshots, no. Mutagenic Growth, no. I'm going to side in my Groundswell. 2 Gleeful Sabotage's Natural State. Let me think about this. What else? What else do I want to do? What do I expect my opponent to have? I'm going to bring in a Ledgewalker. My pause here is just me thinking about what do I want to have in this matchup versus what do I actually have in my sideboard. Mutagenic Growth is pretty bad because it doesn't save my creatures from Galvanic Blast. Healing Wolf's pretty bad because it doesn't attack very well. They're not going to try to kill it in the first place. Riverboa is not unblockable. Yeah, it's probably fine. But like in the first game, Stompy is totally fine in this matchup and doesn't really need a lot of hate to win it. So I will keep this hand. This looks solid. I like Glyph Sabotage. Makes me feel comfortable. If I drop Burning Tree Ambusher, I'm going to cast Gleeful Sabotage. Ooh, Frogmite. Okay. Frogmite into Galvanic Blast. Probably playing around my Gleeful Sabotage. I'm going to watch out to see if my opponent might have a second Galvanic Blast, because I don't want to get my Elephant Guide eaten. Yeah, my opponent might have Galvanic Blast. Now, I could sack the spawn to play it, and then Groundswell, and that seems at least somewhat good. My opponent now has 4 mana, so Gleeful Sabotage killing 2 lands doesn't look that attractive. I could Gleeful Sabotage to kill a land and a tree, but what is in my opponent's hand? What if my opponent has double Galvanic Blast in their hand? think I just attack. My opponent does not want to trade. Opponent doesn't have, unless they're hoping to cast Galvanic Blast, they don't have Mirror Forcer, they don't have Carapace Forger. I don't think they have Atog either. Don't have Gear Seeker. Maybe their hand is like Fling Fling or something. They can't, if their hand is Atog Fling, they can't kill me next turn, can they? No, they can't kill me. Okay, so I'm just going to attack, play Nest Invader and Carrion Ranger. I'm going to play land first, because if my opponent Galvanic Blasts, I want at least the option to Groundswell. But I'm fine with the trade. So I definitely can cast Gleeful Sabotage here. Sorry. I mean, Standard Bearer. That's different. Alright. Well, they got me. Here I am with this Elephant Guide in my hand. They don't have another land. So my play yeah, sorry, I'm just a little confused here. I was not expecting that, but I guess that is a reasonable card to have in your sideboard. I don't think my opponent has Galvanic Blast, but maybe. Alright, I think I'm going to cast Gleeful Sabotage, killing Frogmite Seat. I guess there's no point killing a Prophetic Prism, because my opponent can make red. Okay, so start with a Nest Invader. Play land. Gleeful Sabotage. Make sure that I'm conspiring it. And yes, if my opponent has an Enforcer, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. But my goal is now to win the game very quickly, because now I can't beat things like Gear Seeker, Mirror Enforcer, Atog very easily, if at all. Oh, right, I can't even untap the Curian. Alright, never mind. I always forget the Standard Bearer shuts down Curian Ranger because I think of it as not something that you do that might choose an opponent's creature. Yeah, okay. That's nice because now I know that my opponent is not doing several things. Standard Bearer sure makes Elephant Guide and Groundswell look silly. But my opponent may have to block with Standard Bearer if they don't do something good this turn. Like Heartclaw Shaman does it, but lots of things do not. Yeah, I think my opponent is quite a bit of trouble. They clearly have a very bad hand. This is not a good Affinity hand. Alright, I'm going to I want to play River Boa, and I'm going to leave a double regeneration. And I don't think my opponent can beat River Boa double regeneration. Wait a minute. That's probably not true. The thing that they could have that would save them is Croclon Shaman. And Croclon Shaman would beat River Boa double regenerate. So I'd rather play the Elephant Guide here. Elephant Guide saved from Galvanic Blast because of Groundswell. They don't have Galvanic Blast, they would have cast it. My opponent wants to play Croclon Shaman and sacrifice 5 things to kill my Elephant Guide. Well, maybe sacrifice 8 things to kill both halves of the Elephant Guide. Then I'm dead. Alright, so there we go. Want to know? See you in the next round.